Hello and welcome to Planner World. Today I'm going to talk through the redesigned version of the planners that I make for myself to use and compare it to my original planner design, which I made 2 years ago and also have made a video completely talking through. So if you're interested in learning more about this more in depth, like I said, I've already made a video about that. Before I start, if it sounds like I'm fighting for my life to breathe, sorry about that. I've got a whole breathing thing going on, but hopefully it won't be too much of an issue. So first of all, I guess the background information. I have these planners made in an A4 size from a custom design that I made up basically from scratch. I've been keeping a planner consistently since 2017, so have kind of developed my preferences over a long time and have gradually learned that an A4 size works best for me. I find it, like I said, the best in terms of size, but most places don't sell an A4 that has like the paper type that I like or a like design that I like. So I have these made with a UK company called print.work. So their website is print.work and it's basically a notebook with custom inner pages printed, and then I decorate the fronts based on the period of time basically. So comparing the old and the new ones, let me draw a diagram. So before, I had these notebooks that had everything in it, but they only lasted for 2 months. So they had all of my, like a year's worth of planner was 6 lots of this 2-month notebook that had all of the pages for monthly stuff, tracking, overviews, and my weekly spreads. And this year I'm doing a kind of comparison, no, that's not the right word, compilation system, where I have 4 books that last for the year. So one of them is like a yearly book that covers the whole 12 months and has the kind of monthly overview stuff in it. And then as a companion, maybe that was the word I was meaning, as a companion book to that, there are 3 lots of 4 monthly notebooks that have my weekly pages in. So I basically split the functionality of this 2-month worth book that I ended up with 6 of per year into the 2, so that the kind of balance of things like bulking, where I stick in quite a lot of stuff to my planners, is kind of like siphoned out more into this volume, which, as I said, there will be 3 of, so hopefully it won't get too ginormous. And the things that I want to see more of an overview of across the whole year are more in this book, so I'm not kind of losing time as I'm moving between my original 6 lots of 2 monthly books. One of the things that I was noticing as I've been using the original design for 2 years is that where they only cover 2 months, I don't set up the next one until I'm almost done with the current one. And the reason for that is because things change, obviously, as time changes. So I didn't want to put stuff in that I would need to edit a lot as plans changed. But that meant that the transition between the 2 was a bit tricky to get my head around. I have a lot of processing issues, and that means that hopefully having a lot of the like orienting in time type pages in one volume, so I'm not switching multiple times a year for that information, will mean that it's easier to keep track of my position in time, whereas the weekly stuff is more, I guess, ephemeral in terms of carrying information that like matters forward. This is more like the minutiae of my everyday stuff, so it doesn't necessarily need remembering, but is incredibly useful for me to have as a reference. For example, things like I write down what time I leave to get to certain places in the relevant daily sections when I have appointments and stuff like that, and I'm constantly referring back to that to be able to properly plan the next time that I need to leave for that like recurring appointment. Even though it's the same place that I'm going time and time again, I still need that information adjusted and recorded because I can't remember that kind of thing. So that's the kind of biggest change, is that I'm going from 6 lots of the same design to last me 1 year to 4 books to last me a year, one that lasts the entire year and one that lasts 4 months. So I guess the other things before I really start, I'm trying to think of questions that might be asked. I don't sell these, unfortunately. I'm not well enough to run an online shop, but again, I have them made as like a random guy, so if it's possible to have them made, like, I absolutely love this because it is completely tailored for what I need. I make these pages in Procreate and then they just need to be turned into a PDF, so you don't need knowledge of like Adobe or Illustrator or stuff like that, which I have no idea about. What other things? Oh yeah, cost-wise, I think they're roughly like over the course of the like chunk of production that I do. So like I said, I have 2 years printed at one time. So this time I had 8 books printed. Last time I had 12 books printed. It's similar in price to Hobonichi prices, so not cheap by far, but like in the realm of like luxury planners, I guess. And this is pretty much my main hobby that I do, and ties in a lot of other hobbies that I do, like taking photos. So being as I can't really leave the house very much, this is basically my like proof of life, I guess, where, as I said, I stick in loads of photos, I record a lot of visual information to help jog my memory of what I've been doing. So I put a lot of progress photos for projects that I'm working on over like the long periods of time that I'm working on them, so like weeks to months, and it's, like I said, a kind of proof of what I actually have been doing while I'm not really out of my house. So the other thing that I've just remembered I wanted to say, the pen that I usually use is a Uniball Signo DX in 0.38. I don't know if it's Signo or Sino, but this paper, I haven't found any pen that doesn't work with it, and I haven't had any ghosting issues either. So this, I think it's the unicorn white inner paper from Print.work. And then I guess I didn't really go into the reasons that I prefer A4. There's 3 main things. The first that I kind of mentioned is processing. So where I have difficulties processing information in like all ways, so like sensory stuff, but also like the internal cognitive stuff, having a notebook that means that I can leave line spaces between where I'm writing means that I can make sense of the information better. So like I said, I typically don't write on every line. I alternate so that things have a gap around them to enable me to read it. I also have issues with my eyesight, like I run out of energy to focus my eyes. So this means that I can write bigger in a bigger space without being cramped. And I also have issues with my hands too. like hypermobility, I can't straighten my fingers. So holding a pen and stuff like that is very difficult. So being able to write bigger is better for me, and just reduces pain basically and increases my ability to actually write. So I guess comparing as a kind of overview for if you haven't seen what my current design is, and then I'll compare like the specifics of what I've changed with the new design. I didn't make substantial changes to like the like spreads themselves. The biggest changes, like I said, was splitting the functionality into two separate books, or two separate designs, which will be, like I said, 1 and 3 books per year. But I did change a little bit. So, like I said, I decorate every cover based on how I'm feeling. So this was my January and February of this year one, which I think the theme was like catharsis, and stuff like that. So I used up my massive stock of like angry and negative stickers. And things like this really do have an impact on like my mood and my determination, I guess. So you can probably hear that it's making me laugh a lot, just even looking at it now, and I've known about this for a year. So that's kind of what we're working with. So I always decorate the inside covers with whatever kind of stuff I come across. So like stamps and stuff from posts that friends send me. I get a lot of stickers from Mild May Fox on Patreon, and their shop is Milktooth Co. So that's where these ones come from. And they always send these really nice like drawings with the Patreon mail. So this is like my habit for all of my journals have these in. And like poems or like things that friends send me, or like things that I want to save, like notes from friends. So that's the inside cover. Then I've skipped a page, but I'll show you the blank version of it. That is basically a overview for the span of time that this edition of books covers. So this one has a 2024 calendar and a 2025 calendar. And the new editions have 2026, 2027. And then on the other side of this page is a mini, 2 sets of mini month layouts, so that, as I mentioned, where this edition of the book lasts for 2 months, that meant that I kind of sketched out a version of what the next 2 months would look like in the front of the current one that I'm using to kind of ease the transition between the two. Then these are some of my tracking pages. So I've just kind of censored some stuff for privacy, but each of these columns is a kind of, for want of a better word, enrichment thing that like are things that humans need to do to thrive and be happy, I guess. So I just pick some that are personal for me and then fill in how often I'm doing them. And then along this side is a mood tracker. So each colour corresponds to a different mood, and I generally split the day into 4, and then tally them up at the end of the month to see kind of an overview of how that month has felt. Then these are the shows that I've watched for the period of time I'm in this book and the books, with genre, start and end date and title. Again, same for books. And I just kind of fill in the gaps with, these are stickers that a friend sent me. And that's kind of the general theme of these whole books, is kind of like filling in the gaps with things that are important to me, I guess. So then the monthly spreads look like this. This is obviously a fully used and decorated one. So to start with, this is pretty much blank, and then I carve in the shape of the month with my themed colour for the month. So for me, each month over like several years has had a kind of related washi tape and pen colour that differentiate the periods of time for me, as I said, over sequential years. And again, that just helps me with processing kind of time passing and orienting myself in time. And also, obviously, I do it for, like, I choose these based on things that I like and associations. So this is my like fresh green for a fresh start of the year, my January colour. Again, I have more trackers here for certain stuff that I want to do. These are tracking the degree to which I'm spending time out of the house, and one for sun/blue sky and one for rain/cloudy. So again, kind of just an idea of what the weather's been like. And then I fill in, these are completely blank to start with, so I write in the numbers for the corresponding month and then write in what I'm doing basically. Oh, this is, as it says, looking forward to tomorrow. So I just write a very brief and not very considered, like off the top of my head, some stuff that I'm looking forward to about the next day. Then this is an example of a completed weekly spread. So there's a column for each day, a column for notes, and two sections that are kind of, I believe it's called an Alistair log. It's in that kind of style. So the x-axis is the days of the week, the y-axis is the like stuff, and then you fill in the corresponding, in my case, I make it boxes. So it's completely filled, half filled, left blank with an arrow if I'm moving it. And these are like my chores. So these ones are printed and these ones I write in each week. So you can see what I was talking about here with leaving gaps between the lines to make sure I can read it, and also writing in quite a big, I guess it's not big in the context of the world, but for me it's a comfortable size that I can write without having to focus on making it small and neat. And then every 2 weeks I go back through my phone album, is it? All of the photos that I took in the last 2 weeks and print them out, and then go back through my planner and stick them on the corresponding days. And then on days when I have too many to fit in the column, I just tie in like an extra piece of notepaper. So these are my parents' cats that I went to visit, and sunsets, just kind of things that I want to reference. I do a lot of taking photos of the plants in my house and garden, so that year on year I can compare things to the previous records that I have. So I have like, I don't even know, like 6 or 7 years worth of records of like when the irises at my house bloom and stuff like that. I just find it really interesting to have these things to refer back to. And I also find it really helpful when, like I said, I can't really leave the house much. It's nice to have a wealth of information, I guess, about what I can expect based on previous years that's happening at my house. So I know that at a certain time of year is typically when I can start getting excited to see when something's going to bloom or stuff like that. So that's this kind of weekly spread. I have another kind of weekly spread that I'm not going to show a filled in version, because that's where I record the activities that I do in a day, but like in order, so I can see how I'm distributing things, and then I can kind of cross-reference it with various other records that I keep as to how that impacts mostly on like my health stuff. And then I also in that section write like positive things that I did that day to make sure that I'm kind of rewarding myself, I guess, or like noticing the efforts that I'm putting in. And then in the back, I make envelopes to stick inside, and I record just like bulky stuff, basically, stuff that I've collected, or if I've printed out too many photos, and like sticker backings. And I write a lot of post-it notes to myself to remember stuff that I can carry around with me in my house. So again, this is just like where everything that I think about goes, pretty much. So that is the kind of overview of my old design. I forgot why I had a version of this out, but it's so that I can compare a blank version to my new designs. So this is my yearly book for the next 2 years. So I have 2 of them, obviously, but I'm showing you this one. I have this cover. So on my desk, I have a writing slope where these are set up. This isn't my normal desk. This is just a rolling table that I could put next to the light so that you could see what I was talking about. But I have usually inside this pocket, I slip my previous volume notebook in here so I can refer to it, what's just happened in the past. And then the volume that I'm working on now is on this side. So this one pretty much stays closed, and then I have this one open on my desk. This is a recycled leather cover from Undercover on Etsy, and I like it. It has an elastic band adjustment that you can, adjustment isn't the right word, but thingy that you can close it with. I don't use it, like I said, because I don't take this with me. It's ginormous, especially when it has like 2 books in it. Like you can see how big they are even when they're like not used. So these stay at my house, and decorated with stickers from various places. This is one of my all-time favourite stickers. That again is from Milk Tooth Co. What was that tangent about? Oh yeah, how I lay out the books. So for my new edition of books, I'll have the yearly one slotted into this side. I won't do it because it's tricky. And then I'll have my monthly ones slotted into this side. So this one I'll have open to the week that I'm working on, and this one I'll have to reference for like dates and stuff. So in my yearly one, the reason I got into that tangent was because I'll be decorating the backs of this one, because they slot into that side. So this is the side that will be visible. So inside this one, there are several blank pages. So I increased this from my previous design because it spans a longer period of time. Then here is those pages that I mentioned that I didn't show. So this is 2026 and 2027. This will effectively be January of 2026 and February. No, that wasn't true at all. Okay. This will be January and February 2027 because this book ends in December 2026. So this covers me for the transition period. Wow. So then I have 12 versions of my monthly spread. So this design did change slightly from my current one. So I moved the calendar slightly down from the top so that I could move my decorated strip of washi tape to this section, because I wanted to move everything on this side up a little bit to allow me some more space at the bottom, because usually I decorate with a strip of washi tape at the top and along the bottom of this, again to link it to the time period, like the month colour coordination thing I've got going on. And this spacing means that I have space to print out more photos to fit in this gap. Whereas with this design, there was some kind of wasted space where the washi tape only takes up 3 squares. That meant that I had kind of this much room and there wasn't really anything functional that I could do with it. So I made that adjustment to make better use of the space. So then on this side, I, like I said, can move the tape and decoration that was here. So I usually wrote the month in this section. I'll be able to move that to here and then keep the washi on either side. And then, sorry, my pen is jingling around. And then, as you saw, I'll be able to stick similar decoration in here and decorate them like practically the same. So very similar usage, but just reducing the amount of wasted space that was in my original design, which I hadn't used before. So I didn't kind of really know what would need adjusting until I, like I said, worked through the first edition of books across the 2 years worth that I had made. So then there's 12 of these because it lasts for the year. And then it goes into my tracking section. So this one I changed relatively substantially from my original design. So I switched it from being vertical to being horizontal, again to waste less space on the page because you can fit more. So this is a bigger size than this one, and you can fit 3 even though it's bigger. So I will just align my things that I'm tracking along here rather than like this, and this extra row along the bottom means that I will be able to do my overview where I add up all of my mood tracking for the month in a nice little bar rather than having them all at the bottom like this. It will just be neater. So we've got 2 pages worth of these to cover the whole year. And again, I colour code the top section for the month that it corresponds to with the relevant colour. This is a new page that I've added. It seems extravagant to call this a design because it's just columns, but this is going to be where I write my playlists in for each month. I typically make a new playlist every kind of 4 to 6 weeks-ish, and it's just nice to have a designated space to record them, because at one point I was trying to fit them in here, but I had to write too small. So if I have their own spread like this, I thought I could then decorate that as well. So again, there's a year's worth of those pages. They are slightly wider columns in the centre, just because of the way that the spread of them worked out, and that made sense to me given that there's the gap in the middle. It will be easier to write, hopefully. Then there's an expanded version of the where is that in here? The shows and books pages. So rather than taking up like a quarter of a spread, it's a whole spread for shows and a whole spread for books as well to span the period of time that's a year. Although mathematically, I've just realised that it doesn't quite work out if I'm using a quarter 6 times a year. That doesn't add up to 1. But I guess I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I left extra pages afterwards. So again, there's extra blank pages in the back of this one compared to my normal one, I think. And I also compensated for the fact that these are spanning a different period of time by changing the amount of pages that are in my monthly one. So from here we have the same extended amount of blank pages in the front, again, so I can decorate with more stuff that comes into my possession. Usually the bulk of that is, like I said, stuff that friends sent me. So that's nice to have there. This is the same as is in the yearly one, a space for my yearly overview. I refer to this when I'm setting up my weekly pages because you've seen that these are like, I don't know how to phrase it, but like made generic rather than having the monthly dates printed on a specific version of the planner, because that would obviously mean that I would need a custom design for each like book, and this way I can have a generic design that spreads any period of time I want to use it. Although obviously for this one I have to update it depending how long my edition spans. And then this one is only weekly spreads, so this is what my blank week looks like before I set it up, compared to what it looks like decorated. So when I'm working on it, it is a lot less visually overwhelming. I couldn't work in it if it looked like this while I was using it, because that's like a bonkers amount of information to get my head around. It just looks like columns with these lists. The colours are there because, again, they differentiate my months. So for this one, you can see that this was the end of December last year. That's my December colour, and then moves into my January colour as January began. And then, like I said, I decorate these after the time has happened with the photos that I take. So, oh, I did change these a tiny bit as well. I just moved the headers up because, again, that was effectively wasted space in this book. You can see I didn't do anything with that couple of squares at the top. So I got rid of the headers because I know what is in them, and that will enable me to fit an extra photo underneath the list of housework stuff, whereas before they were just a tiny bit too big. And if you print them much smaller than this, which I think is like 4 centimeters square, you lose like the detail that I'm trying to show. So that, again, just another optimization space-wise, I guess, for that. And then, so there's, as I mentioned, this blue version of the book lasts for 4 months, so the year will be split into thirds. And I really liked that kind of seasonal spread, because it will be January, February, March, April, which is kind of the beginnings of the year and also kind of the beginnings of spring. And then May, June, July and August. So that is kind of summer, and then summer beginning to wind down. And then September, October, November, December, which is kind of like the like hunkered down third of the year. So that was just a very pleasing kind of split for me, because I have kind of redesigned the split, I guess is the best way to say, of these pages. So I could have really gone for any spread of time. I could theoretically have made like everything in one book. So I could have just made one of these, but duplicated all of the spreads so that it spanned a whole year. But the reason I didn't do that is because you can see how much thicker here they bulk up as I stick stuff in. It's not a gigantic amount, but I do notice the difference in writing in them towards the end of the book. So I wanted to minimize that to some degree. And again, with the choice to put them in like 4 monthly chunks, I just like how that divided the year. It didn't appeal to me quite so much having it be like January, February, March, and an odd number doesn't fit in so well, I guess, mentally for me, which is an interesting thing to realise. I prefer to see the months in chunks of 2 or like 4, you know what I mean, even chunks. It's really interesting how making things like this can really like drill into the ways that you like perceive things like time, and how design and like physical objects kind of tally and express with that. It's interesting. I like this project that I've kind of done. Like I said, this, starting from next year, will be the 3rd year moving into using a planner every day that I have designed myself. So it's interesting to kind of see the iterations of that and the reasons behind the design choices that I'm making. It's interesting to kind of be conscious of them because some of them felt intuitive to do, but obviously there's a reason behind that intuition. So then this is the other type of monthly spread that I didn't show in that last one. So like I mentioned, this is where I write down the order of things and the distribution of things that I did in the day, where in my other weekly spreads, it's not chronological or prioritized or anything. It's just as I think of them, they get written in the list and then I work through them in whatever order. So like I said, that gives me an overview of the sequence. This again, like I mentioned, is where I write down like positive stuff that I did in the day, stuff that I want to like acknowledge. That's it, positively acknowledge in here. Along the bottom, I write down again, very quick list of things that I'm grateful for that day or things that I appreciate. I guess it's like things that I noticed in that day that had a positive impact on it. So again, it's nice to make sure that I'm keeping track of stuff like that, both like more external stuff, like the things that I'm grateful for, and the internal stuff where I'm very spending almost all of my time alone at my house. It's important to keep kind of context going and like positive reflection going as well. So then this section at the front, because it obviously splits into 8 to cover the 7-day sections plus an extra one. This is where I write like my breakaway, like big effort thing that I did for the day. So this will be stuff like, if I can think of an example that's not too personally revealing, stuff like chose to go outside, for example, is basic but easy to not do when you are in the horrors. So things like that. Again, just trying to keep track of things and keep things as balanced as I can in my strange life that I'm living. And then again, I've got lots of blank pages at the back. Again, more than usual because it spans a longer amount of time. And then I'll make first and then stick in envelopes in the back here and fill those up. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover. Yeah. So hopefully that's answered any questions that might be interesting. Oh, also again, that's what I forgot. So these come staple bound and like it's fine enough, but they don't feel super sturdy. There is an option for a different kind of binding, but I haven't tried that kind and I was worried about how it would hold up in the periods of time that I'm using them for and in their ability to lay flat. So I know that this kind of binding works for me because I go through all of them and where's the center? Make holes through here and then stitch through the spine to reinforce the spine. I don't know what this stitch is called, but it's the one where you go, wow, I don't even think I can explain it, but it looks like that. And I use a different colour for each notebook. So I'm excited to go through and make the holes in all of these and sew all of these. Because then also I use the corresponding colour to tie in where I have, like I showed you, extra photos on like other paper that I stick in and tie into the relevant week. It's nice to have, again, another kind of colour-coded thingy as I'm looking through them all. So I'll do that for this edition. I haven't done that yet. But if you had a awl and one of those like book cradle thingies, I would use that, but I use a hammer and a nail and whatever I can get my hand on to like absorb the spike of the nail as I'm hitting through. And then just sew through it like regular style with embroidery thread, just to like stop this being possible to happen, because I don't want them to lose their covers as I use them. Okay, that's the end for real. So hopefully I answered any questions that I could anticipate, but if you do have any more questions, I am ready to answer them. You can send them to me somehow. I'm going to post this on Tumblr, but not rebloggable, so you should be able to reply to, like, do a comment on the post, or you can send me an ask, and if you don't want it answered publicly, write on the ask and I'll respond privately, unless I don't want to answer it, which is no offence, but you know, there's boundaries with stuff where you're recording your whole life in a piece of paper that you can hold in your hand. So that's the end. Thank you for joining me in Planner World, and I hope that you're all having a good day.